Okay, so in some cases, it's not always easy to find the y-intercept on the graph of a line. Today, you will learn a way to identify the y-intercept by solving an equation. So we have there on the left side point-slope form. Now over on the right side, we have slope-intercept form, which we're familiar with. But point-slope, what's missing is the y-intercept. We have the slope, that's the m, but you don't see a b in there, okay? Instead, what you see is an x sub 1 and y sub 1. And those of you that use the slope calculation, you're familiar with x sub 1 and y sub 1. That's given to you. Okay, those are coordinates. Okay, so let's look at an example. Number 1 says, slope of the line is 7, and it passes through the point of 3/8. Now, if I asked you for slope-intercept form, you wouldn't be able to give it to me. You would only be able to give me the 7. But you wouldn't know what the b is, not until you do some calculations and you solve for y. Okay, so let's do that. Point is 3/8, and the slope is 7. So 3/8 gives us our x sub 1 and y sub 1. And we're going to use that into our point slope form. So I've created a little template here for you on your inputs. Notice that the minus after the y is part of the form. So is the minus after the x. Okay? What happens when we end up with two minuses next to each other? Turns into a positive. So we need to be careful. We need to be able to recognize that if that happens. Now the points that I'm going to put in are both positive. Makes it a little bit easier. So I just plug them in. Now if I look up at this the point slope form, notice that x sub 1 is over there with the x in the parentheses. So I take my x, my 3 in this case, and I'm just going to plug it in over there with the x. So the 3 goes here. And the 8, my y sub 1, goes with the y. So 8 goes there. The m we're familiar with. That's our slope, and our slope was 7. So far, all I've done is put in my inputs into my formula. Okay, 3/8 was my original point. 7 is my slope. Now I'm going to solve for y. So what do you think my first move is if I want y by itself? No. What does PEMDAS tell you to do?
Oh,
the parentheses, right? Well, how am I going to get rid of these parentheses in this case? What am I going to do? Any ideas?
7 times x and 7 times negative 3.
Very good. 7 times x and 7 times negative 3. That's going to be your first move. That's our distribution, right? Distribution property. So I'm going to multiply 7 times x and 7 times negative 3. So 7 times x gives me 7x. And 7 times negative 3 gives me negative 21 or minus 21 in the equation. Now over on the left side, we haven't done anything there. We just have y minus 8. So we're just going to bring that down for now. Really close to getting y by itself. I just got to get rid of that minus 8. And some of you already told me what to do. I'm going to add 8 to both sides. And let's make this cancel. So I add 8. These 8's cancel. Add 8 over here. So now I've got y by itself. Y equals 7x doesn't change. I can't add the 8 to the 7x. They're not like terms. So 7x. Now negative 21 plus 8 would be negative 13. And we're done. We now have our slope-intercept equation. Now we could graph it. We could put it in our calculator. If we wanted to get a table of values, we could put it in our calculator to compare our graph and make sure we're graphing correctly. And look, my slope didn't change. My slope is still 7, just like I was given, but now I've got the important y-intercept, right? Okay, so that was the first example. If you're a little bit lost, that's okay. We're going to get more practice on this. Let's go on to number 2. Okay, slope of the line is negative 4, and it passes through the point 2, 5. So slope is negative 4, the point is 2, 5. Is the 2 going to go with the y or the x? Good. That's our x. It's going to go over there with the x in our form. And the 5 goes with the y. And then our negative 4 is our slope. Now we're ready to solve for y. Just like before, we get rid of the parentheses first by distribution. So I'm going to distribute negative 4. We get negative 4x. Be careful with your minus or your negatives. -4 times -2 is +8. And we still have y minus 5 on the left. And then the next step, the last step, you add +5. Very good. +5 to both sides. So my 5's cancel. Now I've got y equals -4x. 8 plus 5 is 13. And there we go. Getting a little bit better, right? I hope. Good. All right. So those were, you know why those were a little bit simpler? Because those points were positive. Well, now this next point, we have a negative thrown in there. So let's see what that does to our solving for y. Okay, the point this time is -2, 3. Slope is 1/2. It's a fraction. Okay, so let's plug it into our formula. -2 goes over there with the x, because that's the x in my point. 3 goes with the y. And then my slope is 1/2. Okay. Same procedure. Let's get rid of our parentheses by distribution. And I know it's a fraction, but if you feel better about doing that calculation in your calculator, by all means, right? Multiply 1/2 times x. That's easy. That's 1/2 x. What happens, though, with these two negatives next to each other? Turns into a positive. Good. Do that. Look for that before you actually do the distribution. So I'm multiplying 1/2 times +2. What's 1/2 times +2? 1. Very good. Again, it's okay to use your calculator to multiply the fraction. 1/2 times 2. Calculator tells you the answer is 1. Okay, so we have +1. Now over here we still have our y minus 3. What's the last step? +3. +3 to both sides. So our final slope-intercept equation is y equals 1/2 x plus 4. 1 plus 3. Calculator, I'm sorry, that should have been a multiplication. 1/2 times 2. When we distributed the 1/2, 1/2 times 2 gives us 1. Okay, number 4. Slope of the line is -2/3, and it passes through the point 9, -5. So let's plug that into our equation. 9 is our x, -5 with the y, -2/3. Do I have any double negatives next to each other? Yes, 7. Any double negatives, minus, minus? Where's it at? Happens over here with the y, right? So this is going to turn into a positive. Okay, now I'm ready to distribute. So I'm going to multiply both times -2/3. That's not a fraction we use often. So in this one, maybe you do want to use a calculator to check your multiplication. So -2/3 times -9, if you do that in the calculator, that's +6. Very good. +6. Okay, still have my y plus 5. What's my next move? -5. The opposite of +5 is -5. Let's make that cancel. So -5 to both sides. Notice that I write it underneath the number because those are like terms. I don't put it under the x term because I know I can't do that. Okay, so I get y equals -2/3 x. +6 minus 5 is +1. And there we go. Okay, number 5, I'm going to go ahead and skip because I want to show you number 6, last problem. Everybody okay with that? Got the notes? All right, number 5 says this, number 6. Right above number 6, it says, you can also use a point and the slope to graph the line, and from the graph, you can determine the equation by identifying m and b. So you don't have to solve for the equation. I mean, we could use the formula, but this is just telling you you could also graph it and then use the graph to identify the b. You've already been given the m. You can put it into slope-intercept form. So let's look at that. Number 6, the slope of the line is negative 2/3 and it passes through the point negative 6,5. So what I'm going to do is plot that point first. So negative 6,5, start with my x-axis. Because it's negative 6, I'm going to move over to the left, starting from the origin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a positive 5, so I'm going to go up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there's my point. And remember that our slope tells us how to move to the next point on the line. So that slope is negative 2/3. Am I going to go up or down?
Down.
Down how many?
2.
Down 2
Over 3.
over 3. So down 2, then over 3. Now I haven't reached the y-intercept yet for my b, but I can do this again, right? I can keep repeating the process. So I'm going to go down 2 over 3.
Yeah, the first one I think the 3.
Did I mess it up?
Yeah.
Over 2.
Oh, I only went 2. Sorry. Thank you. I only went down 2 over 2. Who didn't catch that? Did y'all catch that?
Yeah.
Down 2 over 3. 1, 2, 3. There we go. There's that all-important point. Down 2 over 3. And there's my graph. Ignore this point. That line does point down. I have a negative slope. Okay, so what is my equation? Well, we're going to put it in slope-intercept form. We were already given the m. What's the b now?
1.
1. It's right here at 0, 1. So this is 1. The slope is negative 2/3. And let's put that together. Y equals negative 2/3 x plus 1. Yes?
Graph seems easier.
The graph does seem a little easier sometimes, yeah. And know that you'll always have graph paper available to you, probably on the future test for us, but also on your end of course exam. You are provided graph paper where you can make your own graphs. Okay.